Thank you once again for joining us and welcome to the program. We begin with Cameroon, where revolts from the Anglophone region against the government is raging and has led to the deaths of many and unrest in the cities of the region. The United Kingdom Member of Parliament Harriet Baldwin, on a visit to the country on Friday, stressed the need for Cameroon to adopt dialogue to resolve the unrest in the Anglophone region. Harriet Baldwin doubles as the Minister for Africa at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and the Department for International Development. She said her trip afforded her the opportunity to meet with a number of stakeholders in the restive region, especially in the southwest capital of Biwa.
President Paul Biya ignored the Anglophone crisis in Cameroon in a much anticipated speech addressed to Cameroon's youth on February 10. In his 15-minute speech, the head of state focused on the latest estimates, which, in his opinion, are an upturn in the Cameroonian economy with renewed activity in various areas. He also told the youth that they should be strongly concerned about the future of the country, as they will have to manage in the coming decades. His speech was strongly described by part of the public, for whom Paul Biya took the news of his country.
And live with us now is African News journalist Elvis Bo. Elvis has just returned from a 3-week monitoring trip to the troubled regions of the country, the troubled Anglophone region. And he is here to give us a first-hand report of what the situation is in the country. Elvis, good morning. I'd like to thank you for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure, Jerry.
Good morning, Elvis. Bienvenue sur le plateau.
Good morning, Hannah. It's my pleasure.
Elvis, you've been in Cameroon, Anglophone region, where there's been chaos for 1 month. Could you draw for us the picture of what it is like over there?
Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much, Jerry. The situation on the ground is very, very complicated because there are ongoing clashes between restoration forces of the Anglophone separatist movement. They call themselves Tigers or the Vipers of Ambazonia. They are fighting with the forces loyal to the regime of President Paul Biya and forces loyal to Cameroon, who want to protect the national integrity of Cameroon because President Paul Biya of Cameroon says the country remains one and indivisible. And so it is important to indicate here that the restoration forces are feared because they have some special powers known as Odeshi. Odeshi means when they are fighting with
supernatural powers.
Yeah, supernatural powers, which means that when you shoot, the bullets do not penetrate. And so it has made the conflict very, very unpredictable at this point in time. And so there is a general atmosphere of suspicion because restoration forces target those they suspect acting as traitors, while on the other hand, the government forces are permanently searching for secessionists and suspects who are behind the killing of security forces. So right now, in the English-speaking regions of Cameroon, schools are not totally effective. Schools are not totally effective because children are afraid to go to school. Parents are also afraid to send their kids to school due to killings and due to false alarms, sometimes which are very, very true, and imminent and plans of imminent attacks going on there. It has discouraged many students. Some of them are learning a trade, and people are fleeing for their dear lives to seek refuge in the hinterlands. And this is because each time a soldier is killed, the forces loyal to the country, to Cameroon, descend with fire and fury, and especially they brutalize the population, especially when a gun is missing.
Elvis, plus précisément, que disent specifically, Elvis, what are the residents say about the current situation? How do they live it?
I would say there are mixed feelings as far as the population are concerned. The population of the Anglophone regions in Cameroon feel that they are dreaming. What they used to watch on TV in other countries, frequent clashes between restoration forces and security forces, brutality on citizens by the military, the determination of the restoration forces to ensure that southern Cameroon gets its independence. Some locals are almost giving up due to frequent ghost towns, curfews, and the pain felt by the families. However, the determination of others remains intact as they are bent on achieving their goal, which is independence. But the government of Cameroon is also bent on achieving its goal, which is Cameroon remains one and indivisible. So the extradited secessionists or restorationists, as they love to be called, have not been presented to the public. And so the people of Anglophone Cameroon fear that the worst must have happened, but the government keeps reassuring them that the extradited leaders are doing fine.
Just to make clear, the extradited leaders, you're talking about the leaders who were sent back from Nigeria.
Exactly. What's the economic situation in the region? How has the crisis impacted the business community?
I must say the impact on business has really been very, very huge. As you know, ghost towns imposed by the interim government, restriction to freedom of movement at certain hours has made things difficult. The frequent internet cuts is adding pepper to the already very, very deep wound. And some people are relocating their businesses to French-speaking areas, while others have simply given up. And others decide to move around now with cash because they are afraid of the unknown. So it's better that if there are clashes, you should have something with you because you don't know what can happen tomorrow.
Elvis, how is this crisis likely to end? Do we foresee any amicable solution to the crisis anytime soon?
And you know, Jerry, that's a very, very difficult question because only a supreme being can really tell you how the crisis is going to end. But now, this is how I wish the crisis to end. You know, a referendum should be conducted in the area to really know what the people want. And at the same time, too, it will be important for the international community, especially the United Nations, to step in to solve the matter. And the regime of President Paul Biya needs to reduce the tone, because for now they're referring to them as secessionists. The military needs to stop violence on innocent civilians, and then the restoration forces must also stop violence on the military. And then as brothers and sisters, they need to sit together on top of a table in the presence of a mediator. I mean, the secessionists on one hand, and on the other hand, the regime of President Paul Biya, they need to sit together on the table and discuss as brothers and sisters. And all options need to be brought to the table in such a way that no matter how it ends, there should be peace. And so all of them are supposed to drop their guns, because violence has never solved any crisis anyway. And I know that if both parties, be them from the side of the government or from the side of the secessionists, if they lock themselves up in a room in the presence of a mediator and discuss, I am sure, and tell themselves, we cannot leave this room unless there is a solution. I'm sure they are going to find one.
Well, Elvis, there's no doubt that the crisis is really biting hard in Cameroon, and that people, all over the world are looking forward to seeing the end to the crisis, and we hope, indeed, that the crisis will be resolved. I'd like to thank you very much for joining us this morning on the program, Elvis.
Thank you, Chujie.
Merci beaucoup, Elvis.
Thank you, Elvis. You are watching the Morning Call right here on African News. Let us bring you some of the stories making headlines on African Journal.